Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. Great to see you all. Great numbers. All right, everybody, come on in. Admitting. All right, I am clicking away here. So nice to see you all. And we'll give a couple minutes to the last minute afternoon coffee drinkers, or potentially, depending on what time zones we have people joining on, potentially the first cup of the day. Okay, well, oh, it's only been 1 minute. We're good. Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and start with my introductions, and then that way, anybody who's you know, coming into the lobby to join, they'll be lacking the introduction, but that's okay. All righty, well, hello and welcome back to Tech Talks with Thomas. We are back with a bang as we welcome a special guest for the first time in Tech Talks with Thomas history. So if you are new here, I'm Sophia Lavin from the Jabra Enterprise Marketing team, and I'm very pleased to be hosting you for the next 60 minutes or so. So on behalf of the Jabra team in attendance for this virtual event and our Jabra colleagues around the world, we would like to thank you for joining us. Before we get officially started here, we have some general housekeeping rules to share. We expect that the event will take, as I said, about 60 minutes. We'll do 45 minutes covering, conversation and product features, and then we'll do 15 minutes of Q&A. So go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A box there. I believe it's right above, and then we'll address them at the end of the event. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers for this session. We're thrilled to welcome our special guest, Michel Bouman from Microsoft. Michel leads the solution specialist team for Teams and devices across the EMEA region for Microsoft, and he has over 20 years of expertise in change management, marketing, sales, and honestly, a whole plethora of other things. You're welcome to check out his LinkedIn to find out more. He is delivering added value to colleagues, customers, and the partner ecosystem. And he's going to take us through Microsoft Copilot's advanced features, which offer new shortcuts, productivity hacks, and real-time assistance. And then following, so big to live up to there. And then following Michel, you know him and you love him, Thomas Baumann, head of pre-sales for EMEA and Kala here at Jabra. He's been a part of the Jabra team for nearly a decade and is an invaluable resource of technical expertise. Thomas will break down how the integration of our Jabra products can optimize your Copilot experience and revolutionize your team's meetings. So, Michel, I'll hand over to you first. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. That's going to be a difficult one to live up to, Sophia. I don't know how to live up to that. That's an amazing introduction. Thank you. So I do lead the solution specialist team for Teams and devices at Microsoft. Jabra has always been such a great partner to us, especially all the stuff that you're doing with Pentacast. Has been quite impressive. I know our engineering team really loves what you're doing with Pentacast as well. A lot of new features came to Pentacast first, and I think we have a couple of more things that are coming. And of course, with VBS now, these are exciting times. Thomas, I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you to be here. That's really also for me a great pleasure. First of all, to kind of bring some life to this format, and not only just me talking all the time, but really to have some guests. And it's a really special honor to have you as the first one. So yeah, I think it's an interesting topic because the world is talking about AI today, and there is a lot of interest, but also a lot of consciousness, and I think it's very interesting to try to find a way into that, how it will change the way we work. Will it replace people? Will it make people simply better or being more productive? That is my personal belief, because we see a lot of trends that you can never fully replace a human being. but you can take some workload off him and give him some space to do the other things even better. And I think that's mainly the topic here. And our goal for today is really, as you're from the Microsoft side, me from the Jabra side, kind of maybe bring some clarity how this intelligent things and hardware, so how the software and hardware go together and belong together.
Yeah, it's crazy if you look at some of the stats, right, on what people say. So 64% of the people say that they're overwhelmed with the amount of work that's being thrown at them. If you just think about deadlines and workload that we have as people now in these days, that would have been unheard of 10 years ago. Right? If I look at the amount of different projects that I'm currently managing, and it's not just small things, it's big things as well with big deliverables, you need some kind of support. And I don't think to immediately answer that question, is AI going to replace us? I don't think so. But I must say, those that use AI in a smarter and better way than the next person, they will start replacing you. Right. So if I just look at some of the work, so we're working on if you are into Teams rooms, if you're into Jabra, obviously you're into Teams rooms as well, because those two go hand in hand. But we have this badge certification up on Expert Zone, and I'm currently building the exam. This is a premiere, by the way. We haven't shared this anywhere. I'm currently building the exam for the next technical badge, which is going to go live mid-June, right after a new boot camp. Happy to post the link in the chat if people wanna join. But we used to do that with 5, 6 different people, and we always have to deliver 125 new questions, and it need to be for this one deep technical. That would take weeks, Thomas, to get done.
Yeah.
And now I just use Copilot. I ground it on the Learn pages at Microsoft, and ground it on the decks that our engineering teams are making, and I ask it to create deep technical level 300 technical multiple choice questions. And if I look at the quality of the questions and the answers, it's at such a high level that instead of spending weeks on putting together the exam, I'm now doing it in like 5 days. And I'm doing it by myself. The only thing I do is I send it to engineering to review it. And it takes them 10, 15 minutes to just go through it because it's all sections and just double check, and then we're ready to start publishing. So the impact that this is having on everyone, and not just nerds like you and I, right? It's everyone. And it's funny, I was at an event the other day with someone that is specialized in different generations. Thanks, Lukas, for posting that. They're specialized in different generations. She was saying that the older generation might actually be doing better with generative AI than the younger generation. I'll explain why. If you would ask, so let's say you're a people manager or a director, and you would go to somebody and you would ask them to write an email to a customer. Somebody from, and I'm generalizing, of course, but somebody from the younger generation would go up to that person and say, "Hey, can you reply to this email from the customer and make sure you send it by the end of the day?" And that's the instruction. Whereas if you would ask it to somebody that's a little bit older, they would say, "Hey, can you reply to that email? Make sure it's 3 different paragraphs, start with an introduction, then the middle piece should be about our product offering, and then the last piece should be to invite them to a webinar that we're doing where we're speaking about tech." Right? And but that instruction is what's needed with generative AI as well, as you shape these prompts. So it's funny, the older generation is doing this as well. And then on top of that, of course, security is a big thing. And then I'm more than happy to move into the rooms. Security is a big thing. But what we're seeing is that across all generations, people are now bringing AI to work. So you and I are familiar with BYOD, bring your own device, which I am not a fan of, I'm gonna be honest. But now you also have bring your own AI. So people are bringing these services to the workplace using confidential information in a model that they haven't checked on all these different security things that they might want to check them on, and start using them. So it's also new risks coming into the markets on top of all the benefits. So it's a super interesting space, and it moves super fast.
Yeah. And it was an interesting statement with the generations and that because it's not doing everything for you, and the result depends very much on the input. So if you put all the information in the input and you have some experience and you have a clear picture of what you want, and additionally you are able to put this into words or into a command, then you will get a great result. And if you're just kind of asking a simple question like you're asking Siri or Alexa, then you will only get a very simple answer, and you will still need a lot of time to rework, or you will simply do wrong or not in a perfect way. And I can absolutely relate to that example that you gave, because for me, one of my biggest time-consuming tasks is I'm often asked, can you give us a statement on this or that? And typically those that I have to deliver it to, they do not like these engineering answers.
Right.
That are just one line. Everything is in there. That's your
Yes.
information. Deal with it. They wanted to put
Yeah.
into words and even with some explanation. And that's exactly where these tools come in. So you can kind of use Copilot to write half page or page of text, and the only thing you do is just to review it and to change a few simple things instead of really thinking through it and building it all by yourself, or just setting up an agenda or whatever. These are the things that normally are very, very time consuming and really eating time of our day.
Yeah.
And that's where Copilot and stuff like that comes into the game.
It's just basic. It's a couple of the basic examples. I think you touched a couple of nice points there with the prompting. It's always good it's important to ground these large language models on something, right? So I'll give a couple of examples. One, if I get to your point, if I would ask Copilot or any large language model, whether it's ChatGPT or whatever it is, if I would ask it to create a marketing plan or help me write a sales pitch to sell more Penacast P50s, it would create a sales pitch, right? But if I say, hey, you're an expert in sales, you do really well in doing cold calling. I'm not sure if that's still a thing, but I'll just use it for the example. You're really good in cold calling. Today, I need your help on selling a Penacast P50, which does X, Y, and Z. By the way, I am a Microsoft partner that is specialized in AV. My ideal customer is a customer with this amount of workspaces. These are the struggles that they have. Ask any questions before giving an answer, and then you hit enter. That's when you'll get a great pitch that you can use, right? What we try to do at Microsoft is when you do these things with Copilot for Microsoft 365 is we ground it, as we call it, on the graph. So you could also ground it on a website. So you could say, for example, I'm happy to demo if anyone wants to see it, just put it in the chat and I'll demo it live for you. If I say, would Michel Bouman be a good fit for a technical teams leader role? Here's his LinkedIn profile. And then I would put the URL to my LinkedIn profile in the prompt. It would actually look at that LinkedIn profile and then give me feedback. So it grounds itself on the web page that I send it to, meaning that one, it hallucinates less, and because AI does hallucinate, it hallucinates less. Plus, it gives clearer answers. Now we do that with Copilot for Microsoft 365 as well, where I can say, look at the last. So give me a summary of the last things I worked on with Thomas Baumann, and focus on email, chats, and meetings. Right. So I ground it on stuff that's already there to make sure that the answers that I get from the model are a lot better. And these are just a couple of basic examples of things that you can do with these models.
Yeah, that's a very good example. And what immediately came to my mind, if you just if you don't ground it, I think everyone knows it, but most people do not really know the reason. If you don't ground it, things happen, and you see that with these AI models that are creating pictures, where you very often find these people with a different or with a not matching amount of fingers.
Right.
But that's because it's not grounded. And when we are talking, we are always talking about 5 fingers, but actually humans have 4 fingers and a thumb.
And a thumb.
So there is kind of 2 informations. So these are fingers and this is a thumb.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they are talking about 5 fingers. So these models are adding an additional finger to the hands.
Yeah.
And that's really because they are not grounded. They are just using all the information, and half of it is wrong.
Right.
Not really wrong, but it's really, in this case, it's just based on how we say it or how we are talking.
Yep.
And that's a very important thing. That's grounding this information. So really the quality or the, let's say, complexity of the prompt, knowing what do I want, and adding the source or framing it or grounding it, as you say it.
Right. And if you bring this into an app like Teams, right? So let's take a Teams meeting, for example, and then we'll talk rooms. It grounds itself on the transcription, right? So I can say, create a table of topics that we discussed during the meeting, who raised the topic, and what decisions were made on this topic, and what the next steps are. It'll ground itself on the transcription.
Yeah.
Now, traditionally, it was difficult. If we just look at the challenges that we have with meeting rooms, is that, so we know that worldwide in 2 out of 3 meetings we'll have at least 1 virtual participant. But that also means that often there are multiple people in a room. Traditionally, it was difficult to give everyone their own identity, right? So if there would be 4 or 5 people in the room and then a couple of people dialing in, if I would look at this the transcription, it would just say meeting room Jabra 1, and then it would show everything that was said in the room. Now, thanks to what we call IntelliFrame, which is available on Panacast as well. As a matter of fact, one of the first one to do it, also now soon with Multistream, is we'll be able to give people their own identity. So not only will we be able to give people their own place on the roster, which is also a lot of AI computational stuff that's happening on the device. So if we give everybody their own place on the roster, giving them their own identity, we'll also see, oh, Thomas, who is in Jabra meeting room 1, said X, Y, and Z, and Michel said this and that, and now we can ask questions about stuff that happened in the room. So this next step, giving people back their identities in the room, I think is a big one.
Yeah, and when it comes to Teams, I think maybe today one of the biggest benefits that really everyone can relate to is this transcription thing. So that you get this transcription and then use Copilot on top of that transcription, so that you do not only have a huge file of text to read through, but really to create a summary that contains everything. And as you already said, together with Intelligent Speaker, really even separates the single people in the room. So the script actually has all the data that is needed. The script really tells you who said what, not someone in the room or room 1 said this and that, and remote participant 2 said this, but really everyone with his clear name. And then if you do the summary on top of this, you'll just get a perfect summary. I believe most people that in the past, it was always the one that came latest to the meeting was the one to write the summary.
Notes, yeah.
And
no longer.
No one, to be honest, no one is really motivated to do that job.
Right.
So that is really one huge benefit that everyone can relate to, at least everyone who ever had to write a summary, that this is now so much easier. And in real time, you can create a summary directly at the end of the meeting and share it while people are still collecting their stuff and leave the room. So they will have the summary when they reach their desk, and not
for sure.
the day later or whatever.
We do a large research. It's an ongoing research we call the Work Trend Index as part of the Microsoft Work Lab. So if you go to microsoft.com/worklab, I'll put it in the chat in a second, or maybe somebody else can help me. We do studies, and one of the things that showed is that inefficient meetings are the #1 productivity disruptor in work. So we spent 2 full days. I always go on a little bit of a rant when I talk about this. 2 full days on meetings. So with the 140 people on this call, if I would ask you who on this call has being on meetings and doing email in their actual job description, maybe 1 or 2 would raise their hand. And most often because I didn't explain the question right, or they weren't paying attention, because nobody has that on their job description. But then we spent 2 full days being on meetings and doing emails. So I think we need to approach meetings more from a life cycle perspective. Right. So if you would schedule a meeting with me today and my calendar is open to everyone on this call, our meeting would be only 20 minutes. And quite often people would say, but Michel, 20 minutes, that's just not enough. Right? I need more. Also, working up to this call, we didn't spend a whole lot of time on meetings. What happened is the Jabra team reached out to me and said, "Hey, Michel, we're doing this call. Do you want to participate? Tell me which date. What would you like me to talk about? What do you need me to prepare?" And then we'll get going. And then we had a meeting on just a little bit of details. We shouldn't use meetings to inform each other. You can inform in a Teams message, right? Or maybe old school in an email. You should use meetings to make decisions.
Yeah.
So now instead of having the meeting just being one single event, it's a life cycle. So we had the before the meeting, during the meeting where we made some decisions, and then after the meeting where you did some prep, and then you and Sophia and shared it with me as well. And that was the full life cycle. And we brought our meeting time down from maybe an hour and a half of prep to like 10, 15 minutes of prep, which is a big win. So 60% of the people are saying that they find it challenging to catch up if they join a meeting late. This is where Copilot can help, because if I accidentally join a meeting late, I can say, what has been discussed so far?
Yeah.
Clarify next steps.
I do that a lot.
Oh, yeah, me too. But what I do, don't tell anyone. What I do is sometimes I'm on a call and I just drift off, right? I'm working on a big project, drifting off and missing, but I can feel somebody's about to ask me a question. I go to Copilot and say, what could be a question that someone asks me right after this? And I get a couple of suggestions, and 9 out of 10 times it's spot on. But so catching up when joining late is one. The next one is clarifying next steps. The example that I always use here is everyone is on the Monday morning, or a lot of people, Monday morning kickoff call with 25, 30, sometimes even more people. Fun stat, Thomas. If you're joining, if you have a meeting that has more than 7 people, with every extra person you have on, the productivity declines with 10%. Right? So
Yeah.
the meeting that people are on with 20, 25, 50, 100 people, completely useless. But then clarifying next steps and asking Copilot, and it'll even nudge you to give you these answers and what are the next steps, and create an overview of that. That is a big one. And then the last one is to summarize all the stuff that happened during that meeting to get that full transcription in a form that it is readable. Those are actually big game changers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think my personal belief, to come a little back to devices. So you already mentioned the intelligent speaker functionality that we have in Panagas 50 with Windows-based Teams rooms. It is already there. It works. We can show it, visit us on our events, booths, whatever. We also have videos online showing it. But also when it comes to the personal use and headsets and so on, I think there is also still some space to develop in where hardware can make a difference. One thing again is the quality of the input, and my personal belief, and we already see it, is that speaking is the next big thing when it comes to use of computers and to input. And my mind always tells me, and you might all know this, the Star Trek episode or the Star Trek movie where they come back to Earth in the 80s, and Scotty is in the police department and is talking to the computer like, "Hey, computer," and nothing happens because they still have the keyboard and they do not even know what he wants. But we have it today with Siri, Alexa, Hey Google, whatever, Cortana on your side. Speech is the next input. And the other thing that will drive this, and that brings us back to the headsets, is there might be other ways for in and output. We all know that, for example, our eyes vision is the only existing wideband connection into the brain. But we saw it with 3D TVs raise and fall.
Yeah.
If you have a good eyesight, you don't want to wear a goggle.
Right.
And also with other wearables, it's hard. Smartwatches, fine, but yeah, when it comes to wearables, I really believe the future is the headset, because however, people seem to be quite fine wearing a headphone or headset.
Yeah.
And using this as an input-output device and bringing intelligence into these devices and usability, and use it as a connector into all these coming intelligent features. I really believe that is the next big thing, and,
Yeah, me
and that
too.
will be very important.
I agree. It's funny. I think that the Cortanas and Series and Alexas of the world were kind of early, right, and quite limiting. So there's this wave now going of new updates. So OpenAI just did theirs with GPT-4o. Google I/O was yesterday. Microsoft has built next week, and then we have what is it, WWDC by Apple early June. You're gonna see a lot of AI, right? And I use this stuff all the time. So when I walk my dog and I have an idea and I'm trying to demo it, so I'm trying to speak and do that as I talk and have an idea, but just want to. The other day I built an app while I was walking the dog, right? So I use the oh, it's too bad it's down now. Otherwise I would have demoed it. Oh no, I can't change it. Okay, I'll do it as we talk. So I use this going through voice just to get me started, and then I go back to the computer to finish the work. Right, even and now I'm trying to multitask, which just looks stupid. Even with the I'll do this some other time. Even with the exam questions, right? I was just taking my daughter. I needed to take her to school. Didn't have time to do it. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll do it, and then I'll work as I'm driving. I opened Voice, and I was like, hey, create me five level 300 Microsoft Teams rooms, deep technical questions on quality of service, right? Because that's one, or on autopilot, because that's one of the topics that we're discussing. And when I came back into my home office, the questions were right there. I could just verify them. It's still a Copilot, so you have full control,
Yeah.
and then continue to work. So no, I agree that voice is going to be very important, and with that comes audio. I mean, even in meetings, if I would mute myself right now, we could lose my video, right? So if my video is off like it is now, we can continue to speak and everything is perfectly fine, right? It's all good. Even if the screen goes blank, nothing is wrong. You can still hear me. You can still follow this session, right? With my mic being off, it just sounds stupid because it doesn't make sense. So audio is such an important piece to meetings. If we don't have audio, we don't have nothing. And then the second one, again, bringing it back to video devices, is being able to see each other. And that's not
Yeah.
about the video quality, which might sound weird because when we look at our TVs, we always want the highest quality. That's not what it's about. You don't want to see me in 8K. I'm not the prettiest of persons, um, and especially not for a 25-minute meeting. But it is important that we're able to pick up nonverbal cues, right? So just like you nodding now, that's if I didn't see the nod, I would have no idea if that statement would have even connected with you.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's why it's important that when you start looking at your meeting rooms, that you think about camera placement. Right. So don't place that Pentacast on top of a display, because that means the virtual participants are just flying like a drone across your meeting room. No, make sure that they're at eye level so you can create that eye gaze so people can look each other in the eye.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not gonna lie. I'm using eye. So if you look at my eyes now, I'm using eye tracker software, not because I'm trying to fool you, but because I'm looking you in the face. Right. I want to look you in the face, and I want you to be able to look me in the face and look me in the eye and see what's happening. Right. So it's those things that really build human connection. So pillar one, having good audio in the room is important, or in meetings is important. Two, being able to build human connection through nonverbal communication, which means people need to be seen and you
And
can see each
we
other.
know it's nonverbal communication is more than 3/4 of the communication.
Yeah.
So because audio, my speech only transports the pure content.
Exactly.
But the meaning of the content is nonverbal, and that's so
Yep.
important. And we all know it. How often did it happen that you received an email and you just got something wrong?
Right.
I'm a grown-up person, but I'm using emojis a lot
Yes, me too.
because I believe they
And
help
Giphies.
to add these, like the name says, they help to add the emotion to the sentence. So I use them not because I don't want to grow up. I'm using them to really add this emotion to the sentence so that people don't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'm a German, but I believe they say, or at least the official saying is that the Dutch are even worse when it comes to being very, very direct.
Or the best.
And
kind of depending how you look at it.
You mastered it.
We have a question, by the way, Thomas, in chat from Meta. Meta, good to see you, as always, by the way. How about security and Teams meetings? Can a person search in Copilot for info from other people's meetings? No. So that's going back to what I said earlier. We're now starting to see, turn the lights, I think it's going to rain. We're now starting to see a lot of bring your own AI. So that is the tricky part, right? So if you would just grab a transcription, you would put it into whatever large language model, and you would just run it. Now that's a security issue because you probably haven't vetted the other service. The great thing is if you've already picked Microsoft as your public cloud provider, you've ticked a couple of boxes. How does Microsoft deal? So first, worldwide level, then the region you're in, then the country you're in, the industry you're in, and then what matters to your company is how does Microsoft handle my data? One, right? Compliancy, privacy, security, and you've ticked all those boxes. So Copilot only gives you access to stuff that you have access to. Right. So somebody on our HR team who might have access to salaries of people across the organization, I have no idea. If they would ask how much money does Michel make, they might get an answer from Copilot because it has access to that. They have access to that data. Right. If I would ask how much money does Satya Nadella make, I would not get an answer because I don't have access to that data. Right. Share me the next leadership plans for the next year. I don't have access to that data beyond what I've created myself. So the great thing is you only have access to what you have access to and nothing else. Now that does mean that you need to think about your data strategy and your data governance. So I see a bunch of partners on the call. If you would ask me, how do I sell Copilot? Mainly Copilot for Microsoft 365. Also, if you are a pro AV company or focusing on selling devices, step one is get them excited about generative AI. And I think that's easy in these days and times, right? There's so much stuff happening. Then two is once they've decided they want to move forward, is make sure you build a strategy around how do you handle the data governance. Make a practice yourself or take a practice from somebody else and resell that, white label it, whatever. And then you do Copilot licensing and then you do the adoption. Right? For me, those are the steps, but data governance is a very important one. Again, you only have access to the data that you have access to, which is great. But if you don't have your data governance in order, you might also get access to other stuff.
Yeah.
And keep the questions coming, by the way. I know, Thomas, you love these as well. So if there are more questions, please pop them in the chat or in the Q&A.
Sure. Yeah, and that's that was just up to the point, and yeah, I'm a huge fan of data science and big data and what you can do with it, and I've seen lots of keynotes on that, even in my private life, and yeah. I think we are living in such amazing times. And as you mentioned, it's really, you have to think about what is really important. As you said, there is no need to see single people in 4K or 8K. It's normal people, you know them, but you need to see what happens. And that is again, to see and hear what happens and to cut out what doesn't matter or what may be disturbing. And that's again where hardware came into the game. And you brought that one example that when we're using your video, but we still hear you, everything is fine. But you can also turn it around. If you have one remote attendee with bad video using his built-in camera with backlight, it's not looking good, but it's not disturbing your video.
Right.
But if you have a meeting participant with bad audio or sitting in the car or in the train and not muting himself, that can destroy your whole meeting. So one bad audio can destroy a whole meeting, while the loss or bad video is not that important. And that brings us back to use of professional headsets, which are able to cut out a lot of background noise. It's for the meeting, but it's also for, if you think as before, for the future input device into intelligence. That if we are sitting in an open office and then everyone is starting to use his voice as an input prompt, then you wouldn't come around using professional devices, because at home I can just talk to Siri, because it's the only device in my room and no one else is talking here. But I sometimes my two sons, they also have HomePods, and sometimes when both doors are open, and I don't know, maybe my kid's volume control is broken, but they are always shouting. And sometimes he's shouting to his HomePod to the song he wants to listen, and mine is starting to play it because she's simply hearing it. And bring that to an open office and people using voice as input device. You won't come around professional devices that cut out your voice from the rest, because I don't want my Copilot to react on the prompt that my neighbor gave right at the same moment.
I agree. There's another question, by the way. Is AI sustainable? So AI in itself is sustainable, but I think the question is more about the environment. So AI can definitely contribute to sustainable efforts. So yes, the rapid growth has environmental implications, of course, due to increased compute demands. But at the same time, using AI can create a lot of efficiency, right? So carbon-aware computing, that's a real thing, right? Data storage optimization, that's a real thing. Energy efficiency, that's a real thing. Offloading some of these, you're hearing some of these silicons now announcing chips with NPUs on them, right? So you're going to offload some of that processing power from the cloud back to the device. That's another thing. At Microsoft, we have a clear mission when it comes to sustainability, and AI and Copilot is part of that. Yes, we're already carbon neutral. By 2030, we're going to be carbon negative. And then after that, I think that's 2050. Don't quote me on this. Every piece that we've used from the earth since 1975, which is when the company was founded, will be given back to the earth at the same time. So I do hear you like concerns around sustainability, but at the same time, I think AI is just going to help us to make it more sustainable because of the efficiency. What time do you assume AI like Copilot will be available through whole PC? Like I will use it in browser, in Office, other apps like Visual Studio, DaVinci Resolve. So maybe just share my screen to take a look. Help me with anything, ChatGPT. Yeah. So what Christian is saying in the Q&A is control of the whole PC. Interesting. There's an event happening on Monday. Microsoft is hosting it. I have no idea what we're going to announce, but if you read the blogs, then I know nothing, by the way. So don't take my sarcasm for a confirmation of what's happening. But they're saying that this is about to happen. So yeah, Monday there's an event. Let's see what Microsoft announces, and that could be, if you read the blogs, that could be very interesting, because that means that it can have more control and more insights over stuff that's happening, and make it more efficient across the OS. I love that demo as well. Christian called out the GPT 4.0 demo that OpenAI gave the other day. It's not just macOS, by the way, it's all platforms. They use the example of a math issue, and a guy's son, he's sitting there with his son, and OpenAI or ChatGPT becomes, or GPT-4o, I should say, becomes a tutor, right? So it starts explaining how to solve this complicated issue. Now there's an event on Monday. Can Copilot be able to make an analysis of a customer based on their writing style and ensure that you hit them spot on when you write back? Yes, you can. Yeah. Look at the emails so this would be my prompt, just top of the head. Look at all the emails that I received from Thomas Baumann at Jabra based on his style of writing. Please write an email that would convince him to take on a meeting with me. Something like that. And it would do that. I use that. What I also like to do is before I go into a meeting with certain people, I ask Copilot for interesting questions that I could ask based on stuff that they talked about earlier on meetings or emails or meetings that we were on together. And the other day, it was something I hadn't noticed. Apparently, one of my peers always talks about the coffee that he drinks. And Copilot pointed out, he said, hey, this person in the last 3 weeks mentioned coffee 5 times. He sounds like a coffee connoisseur. Maybe he's drinking a special coffee. Ask him about that. And so I asked the question. I was like, hey, you speak a lot about coffee. Are you interested in some kind of special flavor, or is it just regular Americano? Or he said, interesting you asked. And he started explaining this whole story around the coffee that he drinks, which actually built a new connection that I didn't know we had. So no, it's stuff like that. I use that a lot for things like that.
And that's the thing, that empathy, and then we see that growing and getting more and more important. And that's the reason why, and we will have more time for that and more space for that when we can offload some of the time consuming stuff to intelligent features.
Yes.
And as you talked about offloading stuff and efficiency and sustainability, brings me to another maybe small example, but for some customers, important example. If you look, for example, at our personal camera, the Panax 20, where we can do the background blur on the device, where a lot of users in the world will say, why do I need this? I can just hit a button and my background will be blurred. Yes, that happens on your computer, but when you're using it through the web interface, or when you are using Teams on a thin client in a virtual environment, or when someone invites you to a meeting on another platform, do you still have your privacy ensured? And efficiency. If you blur the background with software, you need. We did some internal tests, and don't blame me on the numbers. It was something between 15 and 20 watts. It's a while ago. You improved a lot. I feel that on my PC. And when we do it on device, where we have a chipset that is specialized for video processing, we can do it with 200 milliwatts.
Wow.
So we are talking about factor 100 going down in energy. Okay, it's just one camera and it's milliwatts, but take it to an organization using 200 cameras, or take it into a scenario where you do not have that compute power on your host because you're running on a thin client or a Chromebook or whatever, where the power simply isn't there. And then your presentation or the animations and your PowerPoint, they get kind of stop motion pictures. And that's really, there's still a lot of room for improvement. And I think this offloading stuff will also be offloading things into maybe devices, maybe the cloud, but in areas where it can be treated more efficient and actually quicker. That in the end, when all is coming together, creating a very efficient and therefore sustainable environment.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny, it made me realize how long AI has already been around, right? It got this big boost when the world was introduced to generative AI, but AI had always been there. I mean, if you just look at the stuff that you've been doing even with the P20, which I think is still one of them, even though it might already be 2-3 years old, right? But if I look at picture quality, and how that is manufactured and all the smart things that you can do, that's a lot of AI processing that's already happening on that device, right? We just didn't realize it. Now with generative AI making such a big push in the world across all different vendors, I think we're starting to really see the benefits. But no, this is, and it's still, Thomas, we forget that OpenAI announced ChatGPT not even 2 years ago. And I've been allowed to peek behind the curtain a little bit of some of the stuff that's coming. It's so early, and things will happen so fast that if you haven't jumped on yet, and I must say, 75% of all people are now using generative AI or have used generative AI, have started using it in the past 6 months. If you look at some of the research, but if you haven't jumped on, this is the moment to do it, because where we started, right? AI is not going to replace you anytime soon. But people using AI in a smarter way, they definitely will. And your competitors, both from a company perspective, but also from an individual perspective, right? Somebody hunting for your role, they're using AI to outsmart you already, and that's not a threat. It's actually a big opportunity. So dive in and start using these tools and see how they can benefit you, even if you don't have the Copilot for Microsoft 365 license. I mean, GPT-4 is free. You don't need a plus subscription or pro subscription or anything. If you just go to copilot.microsoft.com and you log in, you have access, right? You don't need to pay anything for it. Just get started and then go to YouTube and find how to write good prompts. Spend 50 minutes on it and you'll have a head start. But don't wait for it. Start today.
Yeah. Use it and get used to it, and it makes such a difference. And I believe I'm actually having a déjà vu right now, because it already happened to me twice. Bumping both within my Jabra time. When I started with Jabra, I started heavily using headsets because it's a headset company. So I was doing it all the day, and after 3-4 months at home, when I had a normal regular phone call on my landline phone, it was somehow feeling stupid. Holding something in my hand, not having my hands free, the need of keeping it to my head. And it just felt so weird. And I replaced everything at home to be compatible with headsets because I simply didn't want to go without it. And then years later, when we started with Panacast, and especially when I grew into my latest role, I started using video heavily. So literally every call I have is a video call, also one-to-one calls. Whenever possible, I always hit the video button. I never use the call button.
Turn video.
And when I have, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 calls a week, or someone calls me on my mobile phone on the go, and I don't see them, it just feels weird. And I'm feeling like, how did this work for nearly 50 years? How was I able to have communications with people without seeing them? And I think it's just, again, this time where I feel that I'm getting used to it. And in 2, 3, 4 months, whatever, I will be looking back and say, how was I even able to do all my work in the past without all these features?
Yeah, so that's interesting, Thomas, because, and you laid that out perfectly. It's not just the change, it's the speed of change. So I have a similar story. I compare it to when we went from on-prem to cloud. I remember when I was early in Microsoft, almost 11 years ago, and I went into a Microsoft partner, and I was there to pitch cloud. And they said, it's just a hype. It's going to go away. I don't want to have this conversation. You're not welcome here anymore. They literally kicked me out the door, right? If you're into Fresh Prince, how Jazzy Jeff gets kicked out the house by Uncle Phil. That was me being kicked out of the partner's office. And then 5 years later, they didn't exist anymore, right? And we're seeing the same thing with this AI wave. You need to start adopting now, because things will go quick. And what you're seeing now is just the beginning. It's going to go fast. So if you can get used to it now, you'll have a big head start. I'll put this. Do I have access to chat? No, I don't. Otherwise, I'll put it in the chat. But go to microsoft.com/worklab and find the latest reports on this and find out which roles require the most AI aptitude, meaning that it's natural for you to use AI. See if your role's there, and then get to work on it. But it's very exciting. I just started in this is Mustafa Suleiman, who is now a colleague of mine. The Coming Wave. It's about AI. It was written last year, and how technology is going to push us forward. This is an interesting read as well to dive into, because things are coming in, they're coming fast, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very exciting. Whether you're in a meeting room, or in a or just wearing a headset, or just using a personal device, right? All this stuff is going to come at you fast. You can take advantage of it. For me in the workplace is, not only does it help me to be more productive, right? It also helps me, and this is going to sound so Americanish, which is very un-European for us, but it's also giving me a happier life. And that's because I can bring down the amount of meetings that I have. I can bring down the time I spend on all kind of stuff that I can just automate now, and I can spend more time with the family. I take my kids to school every morning.
Yeah.
Right? My work day, and then I walk the dog. My work day doesn't start until 9:30. I'm actually late today because usually I end my day at 4, right? And then in the evening I do like half an hour of email. So my work days are shorter. I spend more time now with family than I've ever done before. And that's because, not because my workload has decreased. Actually, my workload has massively increased over the past 2 years. But Copilot and generative AI is just making my life so much easier that I can spend it on stuff that I care about more, which is my personal life.
And that kind of links it to the other big wave we are seeing out there, when everyone is talking about Gen Z and their huge focus on work-life balance, and even counting happy life on top of work. What
Yes.
might be confusing for boomers, but in the end of the day, really, literally everything links together, and again, also devices play into that game. Being able to do some of the things on the go, or in other places, all this workation stuff, where also devices play a huge role, and in the very end, all links together, and it will be the future, and we are living in very interesting times, and I'm very happy to live in these times where things really happen, and you're not just dying with the same technology that you were born with. And
Yes.
it's great times, and there might be some risks, but in the end of the day, we as humanity kind of more or less managed to get the good things out of innovation so far, and I just hope that we do this again, and we can start and live great things, and create a
100%.
better world,
I
maybe.
see Sophia put her camera back
Yes.
on, and I just looked at the time. Time flew
Yeah.
by, so that's probably our
It
cue there.
did. But I allowed it to continue just because I think that you also incorporated several of the questions quite organically. And I wanted to just give a last opportunity here for anybody that wanted to add any more questions, or if you guys wanted to address the couple last ones at all, since we only have a couple minutes here. But otherwise, yeah, we can go ahead and wrap up. But great discussion, guys. I don't know about everybody else, but I was just listening like this.
For me, thanks again for having me. For me, the biggest takeaway is, if you haven't started yet, start today. You don't need, of course, I'm getting paid on all this Copilot stuff, but you don't need to have the Copilot for Microsoft 365 license. You just go to copilot.microsoft.com. You start. You don't have to pay anything. You don't need a subscription. The only thing is, it will not be connected to all your work documents, but all the other prompting stuff. Start brainstorming with Copilot. Start using it to write better emails. Start using it to write better sales pitches. Right? Start using it to plan your next vacation. My wife and I were planning to go to the Italian Riviera during the summer, and we're using Copilot to plan out the trip for us. With a family of 6, my wife and I, we have 4 kids. So we need all these elements in there. It's complicated, but technology is helping us. Start today. AI is not going to replace you. Somebody using AI in a smarter way, they will.
Awesome. Well, in that case, on that note, I will go ahead and wrap up the session. Any questions that we didn't get to, please reach out to our great presenters today. I put their QR code with their LinkedIn profiles in there, so go ahead and grab a picture of that so that you can reach out and connect directly. Or perhaps maybe Thomas and Michael or Michelle, I'm sorry, you could potentially reach out and answer to them directly since you can chat to them directly. So thank you again for the great discussion, both of you. And thank you everybody that was able to join us today. The recording will go out and all the follow-up emails and comms. So hopefully we can do something like this similar again soon. And if you have any feedback, please by all means reach out and share. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for listening.